I'm super excited about this upcoming Fireside chat with Han and Aparna. So before I speak too much, let me first welcome my co-presenters, Han and Aparna, up to the stage. All right, so I'm Yanbing Li, Chief Product Officer at Datadog. So I think lots of you already know a lot about Datadog, so I'm not going to belabor the introduction about myself. Let me put the focus on our co-presenters. I'm actually really excited because I have worked with Han and Aparna at Google Cloud many years ago. And this is kind of our first reunion after we all left Google. It's interesting that we did a lot of work at Google together around cloud native, building cloud native infrastructures and applications. But now we're reuniting in this AI intersection around, again, AI infrastructure, developer experience, and observability. So, and we're going to get into all of that. Let me just quickly introduce the two speakers. I think Aparna and Han, I see them as queens of Kubernetes. I don't know if you guys have been in this ecosystem, you know their influence and impact in this space. And they have led product and engineering for Google's efforts around Kubernetes and serverless, and among other things. So after leaving Google, Aparna joined Pear VC as a partner specialized in AI and ML, investing and advising startups in the space. She also worked at Capital One, leading the AI efforts there. And now she's an SVP of product at Vercel. And we're going to hear more about her Vercel story later on. Han joined CoreWeave after leaving Google as the SVP of engineering. And she's led significant growth at the company, through the IPO journeys and, also M&As related to weights and biases, and more recently, OpenPipe. So, Aparna, Ken, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And maybe I'll invite Aparna to just introduce yourself a little bit more, and especially what you're doing at Vercel.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's so special to be with these two. We had a wonderful time in Google Cloud. And Vercel is really, we call ourselves the AI Cloud. It started as an open source project called Next.js, which was for developing web applications, and then became a developer service to host those applications. So very similar to our Kubernetes journey, which started as an open source project and then became actually a very large hosted business, not by itself. Of course, a lot of work went into that. And because Vercel is a developer-centric platform, really we started using a lot of the AI technologies internally, started using it for generating code, and out of that came this vibe coding solution called V0, where anybody can write code and deploy an application, and also a lot of internal developer tools that are based on AI. And so we then externalized a lot of that infrastructure into what is now the AI Cloud. So we offer a gateway, a way to build AI workflows as agents and so on. That's pretty recent. And in fact, I was involved in launching the AI Cloud, I think the week after I joined, which is just about 3 months ago.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, Han?
So for me, I feel like very fortunate to be part of that Kubernetes journey. And part of the thing that was really unique about that time is that, back at Google, we were thinking about how to disrupt the space of cloud computing, in essence. And the idea was really to think about what's now is going to be possible. So that's been an amazing journey. And I didn't think I'm going to have an opportunity to do something like that again. And then when working on something like, we've been starting to see a lot of AI workloads, I think being an infrastructure was never as cool as it is right now. So, the opportunity to, again, look at things like performance and throughput and just a lot of things that, we've became, taking for granted, is really interesting. So I've decided to join a company called CoreWeave. Fundamentally, we believe that we are at a time that will require us to re-platform everything we're doing. We'll have to change the ecosystem, the tooling, and the journey that we are on is reimagining how that will look like, and really making a lot of decision of how the entire stack from the bottom up is going to look like. It's been an amazing journey, and that's it.
That's great. Maybe let's continue on the point of that amazing journey. You know, you talk about why the AI infrastructure at scale needs to be different from, you know, how we build the cloud infrastructure. You know, how the neo cloud needs to be different from the traditional hyperscalers. Mm-hmm. Can you give us more insight on what are these key differences and what are also the key challenges that arise with these differences?
Of course. So first of all, you know, when we think about the workloads themselves, okay, you can think about training and inference and now agents. There is a certain new set of requirements that come to play. For example, the amount of memory, the amount of network. Those workloads are actually usually do not reside on a single node, right? We are actually talking about those really huge clusters right now, especially when we think about model training. Even when you think about from an operational perspective, and I'm sure you guys are seeing that at Datadog with your customers as well, is that even the way we measure success of these workloads is changing. Okay, we're talking now about price per token. We're talking about MFUs, model flops utilization, like how much is the system. What does MFU mean? It means that I'm measuring how much the GPUs are actually doing the right effective work, like making sure there are no bottlenecks around the storage. Why is that important? Because, of course, everything is so expensive. Or even things like goodput. Okay, we haven't used to talk about how much every single node is up and running, the cost of checkpointing. So there's a lot of new things just from those set of workloads that are coming to play. And then to add on top of that, I think the two things are also very interesting. One is that the technology keeps changing a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's maybe something that, you know, I think in a much smaller volume we saw it in Kubernetes, but the technology and the complexity is really increasing. You know, if you've watched Jensen's in his keynotes in GTC, he talks about all the components, right? How many pieces are in these huge racks. Mm-hmm. And how much power they consume. And maybe the last point I will say that with all of that complexity and all of these new requirements, what customers and developers want is still move as fast as possible.
Absolutely.
Right, and achieve that velocity. And it's actually a really hard problem to solve.
That's great. So the the new complexity in the infrastructure, as well as how developers still need to move fast, and certainly on the infrastructure side, as part of Datadog's efforts, we are looking at the end-to-end AI stack monitoring, including at the infrastructure level, at the GPU level, mm-hmm. Monitoring exactly what you highlighted as the challenges around, congestions and costs and utilization, et cetera. So maybe since we're talking about the developer experience, let me move to Aparna. You've certainly Vercel catch the attention and imagination of lots of the developers. But, whether it's from Vercel's perspective or from what do you see industry at large, what are some of the key challenges or changes around developer behaviors and expectations and their expectations for the tools they want to use to help them being better developers?
Yeah, I think that the life of a developer has changed significantly due to AI. I mean, engineering is one of the functions which has been most impacted by AI. I would say that developers are now able to move much faster than even when we were working on Kubernetes. I remember thinking that, well, Kubernetes is just automating the infrastructure. So, it just automatically configures and sets up the infrastructure for the application. But what if we could automatically write the application? And this was like maybe 10 years ago. It was kind of a dream. Now AI writes lots of the application. And so most developers I know are using AI-driven tools. Certainly we are using them all over Vercel, and most of our customers are using these tools as well. And it's for everything. It's for certainly, checking your work. We have PR review, and it's for generating entire, whole applications. I think it has definitely made the developer lives easier, but also I think there's kind of a different workflow almost emerging with that. And as we play it forward, when there are more and more agents, we like to say there's an agent on every desk. And that's not just for developers, but there are more and more agents to choose from and to use, setting up your workflow in a way that, you're accessing the right tools. You've sort of written the right prompts for these tools. That's important. The other thing I think you asked about challenges, I think there are 3 challenges, and one challenge is actually keeping up, because there's always great models. I think last week, Thursday, there was a new model, and then Friday there was an even bigger 1 trillion parameter model. And because we are in the business of hosting an AI gateway, we have to be, we count the seconds till when the model is released till when it's available in the gateway. Because if you're off by 5 minutes, then you're kind of yesterday. No one cares. It's not news anymore. So we have more than 100 models to choose from, and part of it is not a different model is good for different things. So choosing the right model for the right task at the right time. So some of the technology that we've built, and there are others, of course, is automatically routing to the right model for the right task. That's part of the AI Cloud initiative. And then I would say 2 more challenges. One is on security, and hopefully we'll talk more about that. I'll come back to it. It's a major challenge. And the other one is on efficiency. And the efficiency piece is, for example, if you're building an agent or a chatbot. Chatbots are kind of yesterday now. People are building agents. If you're building an agent and you have to, and this is an infrastructure challenge, that agent is running on some infrastructure, often the agent is waiting on the model or potentially a human on some input. So if your infrastructure is just running during that time and you're paying a bill, that's kind of inefficient. So, we've worked on, and I think others are working on infrastructure that's much more efficient for agentic workloads.
Okay.
Kind of only charge when used.
So efficiency, security, as well as the the ever-changing landscape of AI and new models, new technology, new everything all the time. So maybe just to build on top of that, Han, it's interesting. As we think about CoreWeave, it was very surprising actually when I finally hired you, because I was thinking they would be hiring people that really build, infrastructure at a much more closer to the actual hardware level. It's interesting to hear about the investment in the software stack above that. So what does that modern AI stack look like in the context of what you guys are building in CoreWeave? What are these different layers, critical components? I know it probably will touch upon things like, observability, security, and many of these challenges
I think that the one thing that how we approach it, I think it would be 2 things. One is really being customer-centric and understand what do our customers need and want and what they care about. And the second thing is being ready to challenge the status quo. Okay, can we do that? Why not do this? I think having those kind of questions really helped us just how we approach the problem. And I will give you a couple of examples. So one, for example, what do customers want? Okay. So one thing that we've invested a lot in observability is understanding that in order for you to move fast as a team, okay, I need a couple of things. One, as a developer or as an ops person, I want to have the data. Okay, I care about that transparency. I want to know what's there because, again, actually it's something we used to talk about in the context of Kubernetes. Having the data empowers me to take actions, to make the right decisions around my platform. So an area that we've really invested in, actually across the stack, we're not thinking about the cloud as layers anymore. but we have something that is like the brain of our platform, which we call mission control, where we bring data from all the layers. Okay, so in one view, we know what jobs are running, what resources they consume, but also what's the temperature of the GPU, and what's the network latency, for example, and just bringing all of them together allows us to not only take actions on behalf of our users, but also make that available for them, right? So if I see my job, for example, stuck, I know whether I need to restart it, I need to do something else, maybe open a ticket. And so that's like really one example. The second one, which I was excited about, again, about challenging the status quo. Today, all the hyperscalers have the hypervisor, right, the virtualization.
Yeah.
Why does it make sense for traditional workloads? Is because you use a lot of oversubscription. Okay, you're using the same platform, the same compute for different type of workloads. You actually don't care what's happening under the hood. However, when we are coming to optimize for performance, well, it was a heated debate, you can imagine, internally. We're like, okay, what if we don't use hypervisor? What would that look like?
Yeah.
And those are just like example of some decisions that we've made. And maybe the last point, like why they brought someone like me, at the scale that we operate in, I don't think you can do, like you have to really rely on things like automation and Kubernetes and thinking about engineering excellence and operations excellence. And that's an area where I've been investing a lot in.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I definitely see, you guys have consciously made the decision to go bare metal versus, having that layers of isolation with a hypervisor. Yeah. Yeah. So, Aparna, maybe going back to you on, again, whether there is this new emerging AI stack where there isn't, it's much more fluid, as Han described in her mission control. What do you see? You mentioned security. What are the key attributes or tools that's part of the AI developer ecosystem?
Yeah, I think there is an AI emerging stack. And, before Vercel, I was at Capital One, which is a large bank. Every enterprise is trying to enable a platform that their developers can build, internal agents or multi-agentic systems on, because there's so many opportunities to automate all these processes in the enterprise, whether they're customer support or engineering or finance, so many processes. So there is an emerging stack. And a few parts of that stack that I would call out. One is obviously there is a large language model or several large language models that, you need some sort of router or gateway to get those models into that platform. And you want to do things like, looking at the prompts, seeing if there's, some sort of security or cybersecurity concern with the information that's going into and out of the model. So that's typically a gateway function as well. You want to log all of that information. You want to evaluate the performance of your system. Those are all things. Aside from the model, and obviously that model is running on some infrastructure somewhere, which could be your own infrastructure, could be a cloud. Aside from the model, there's usually some sort of orchestration technology that you're using to build this agent, which is going to be calling different tools. And those tools, there's an emerging standard called MCP, which is for, calling those tools, certainly in the sort of internal enterprise context. So I think that's some of the basics of the stack. And then at a higher level, there are a number of application SDKs, application development SDKs, and some UX patterns, some of which we contribute to. So back to our open source experience, Vercel has the AI SDK, which is a TypeScript SDK for developing chatbots or developing agents. And it tries to be very simple, and it's fully open source. There's a large ecosystem of many other companies that are involved in that. And then like a recently added UI or AI elements layer, which sort of like helps you build these interactions. So there's a lot of innovation in, how do you build an AI interaction. On the security side, so these are some of the elements, the application layer, the model and the orchestration layer. On the security side, you have to secure the access to the tools through MCP. That's very much an emerging area. You also, these agents themselves, they have to be, because the agents are going to do various things. Maybe they will crawl the web. You have many agents that are crawling the web. Maybe they'll take certain actions on your behalf. So how do you authenticate these agents? How do you know that that is an agent that should be coming to that particular system or to that site? And so at Vercel, we host a lot of sites, retailers and gaming companies, all kinds of companies. There are certain agents that you want to accept and certain agents you don't want to accept, right? Like certain agents that are going to maybe crawl your site and then help you make a sale, but other agents that are crawling you to copy you. So there are new standards that we're working on to authenticate these agents. Those are some of the, and then of course there's a lot of malicious agents, so to recognize and block malicious agents.
That's great. And you guys are building those tools in-house, or are you also, you see promising technology, vendors emerging, building those, as third-party tools?
Yeah, most of the work we are doing as open source. Certainly the AI SDK is fully open source. The AI Elements is fully open source. The bot auth standard, web bot auth standard, this is an IETF, Internet Task Force that we're working with. What we do at Vercel is we create our own directory of agents. We have a firewall and a CDN, which when you host your application on Vercel, protects your application from bad bots. And it's customizable, so you can say, I want to be scraped by OpenAI, but I don't want to be scraped by Anthropic or vice versa.
Yeah. That's interesting. I wonder if you've seen the recent pattern change on the applications that get created and hosted on Vercel. I was trying to convince one of my kids to play with V0 or Lovable. She studies design, but I'm trying to get her exposed to vibe coding. I'm wondering, with the popularity of things like V0, but also people building real production apps, how that's changing the pattern of what the Vercel platform is seeing.
Yeah, we have seen exponential growth on V0 from vibe coding users. So we deploy 6.5 applications per second. Okay. 6.5 applications per second, and growing, based on this. Some of the things that we've tried to do there is really make sure that those applications are secure. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of checks go into it. We focus especially on Next.js because that's our framework. Because again, like vibe coding can be dangerous. Like if you're putting an application in production that hasn't gone through all of the proper security checks, and so V0 actually specializes on the security aspect of it. But we've seen phenomenal growth in its developers, but a lot of non-developers. It's designers, actually, quite a few UX designers and product managers.
We see a lot of that for sure. I think that what's become the most important part of that application development is actually the data and understanding the data and what data you want to bring from the different tools to create those kind of new applications. So that's a pattern that we start to see. And also, I'm really excited with how accessible the technology is becoming. And so when we're looking, we have a part of our portfolio, we've acquired weights and biases, and model is actually used for training. Yeah. And I think there was some thoughts like, hey, only few were going to be doing training in the industry. But then technologies like reinforcement learning came about, and it's really changed the way application is being developed or reasoning models. So we just actually saw like an increase with the folks that are investing in training, and also back then the amount of inference, and how does that look like?
Yeah, that's interesting because I know as an industry we've been also watching just AI infrastructure or GPU usage when you cross over to be training dominant, people operating these huge GPU farms who now starting to see inference become a dominant part of that usage. But what you're saying is training is back. also because
I think it's super,
more and more people are.
First of all, the minute that the technology is more accessible and the tools become better, then people will have more use cases, right? So we will see that growth. The other thing is, we talked about tokens before, so it's true, by the way. I think that the idea that price per token is going down is, again, reducing that barrier to entry. Right? If the cost of that is going down, actually more people will be able to leverage the technology. And then the new AI technologies that we have, like reasoning, like reinforcement learning, creates more token. But also, we talk a lot about, from AI development, we talked a lot about quality or accuracy. And that's becoming also critical for that AI development, and there's a lot of use of infrastructure for that. So definitely, not going into numbers, we see demand continues to rise. That definitely will continue a challenge for us as an industry.
Okay.
To improve efficiency, but also meet the demand of infrastructure.
Yeah, one thing I would add there, I think accuracy, like we have seen just over the last 2 years, a real evolution in how AI applications are built. They started with, and there was a lot more emphasis on sort of single model to begin with, and then retrieval augmented generation to get, minimize hallucinations, which I think was maybe 80% of the solution. But the reason I think why agents have emerged is because it actually improves your accuracy much further to have multiple models, specialized models for specific tasks, and to be able to call tools for things that don't necessarily require a model. And I think the developer workflow is the prime example of that, of that sort of cutting-edge AI application, which is an agentic application. Like V0, for example, is an agentic application, and it calls certain tools under the hood, and it calls certain models, and which model it calls for which task depends on whichever model is the best. So, and those models have evolved in that they are, of course, much more capable models, but they're also doing a lot more reasoning, which is very useful in the coding task. And many of them are trained, and then they've had the post-training and reinforcement learning specifically for specific programming languages. And we certainly help with that. Vercel helps. We collaborate with OpenAI and Anthropic and Gemini to do the evals and make those better.
Yeah. So speaking of the advancement of agents or applications, this morning we shared some of the Datadog agents, such as our SRE agents. We shared our LLM observability capability in eval and all that. We definitely see the advancement of these agent performance is related to both the advancement of the model, the quality of the data, the quality of the evaluation, and we've definitely seen that strong progressions of the quality of results because of those factors. Maybe coming to the evaluation topic, this morning the speaker asked the questions of who feel they're doing great evaluation. And I think nobody raised their hands. So Han, I think both was with some biases. I know this is a huge focus for you guys, but what's your point of view? What's state of the art eval look like? And how do people get there, feel really good about their eval?
I think that as we think about like accuracy and results, the thing that we are really helping our users through weights and biases is making sure that those experiments and runs are easy, and it's easy to compare the results. One of the things that, maybe not just about eval that I'm really excited relates to agents. When we talk about agents, actually building them, the pipeline, just experimenting is really hard. And we made an acquisition of OpenPipe just last week, which is actually, again, an open source technology that automates this entire process and gives users the ability. It actually automates two things, right? The entire pipeline of building those agents, but also how do I know the result is good, right? I need to give feedback to my agent, like, hey, this is good, this is not good. How do I give that feedback? And actually creating those functions is hard, like that scoring function. So having that like generic one that has great results is something that we are investing in.
Okay, great. Aparna, what do you see as something that's working for building good eval?
I think good evals requires good data. In an enterprise context, that could be your internal knowledge of how a process should work. You have to then capture it in a way that you can actually use it for evals. I've seen a lot of manual tools, Excel spreadsheets that capture questions and answers and all these corner cases, etc. That's not really that just happens to be where I think most people are. At Vercel, because we have 10 plus years of TypeScript and JavaScript development, we have all this code, which is sort of best practice code, and that serves as data that can be used for evals, and that's why we do evals using this highly curated code base. That's obviously for that particular purpose. But I think each enterprise, each use case has to have their own data to do good evals. Maybe Datadog can help with this. We're a Datadog customer. We have a lot of data in Datadog, and Datadog is our customer. But yeah, depending on, one comment I'll make is I think observability also is changing, right? Because of AI, because I think the user expectation is that you will actually analyze that data and you will give me solutions. You'll give me recommendations and solutions.
Yeah, I definitely think that's what we at Datadog deeply believe in. I think, you two missed this morning's keynote, but we did talk about the real-time, high-quality data that we have that allow us to not only train better foundation models, specialize in observability, but also use those better real-time context in the case of actual inference and solving the problem better for our customers. So definitely we believe in the data being a key driver for the quality of any AI product. So we've covered quite a few topics. Maybe switching gear to coming back to the importance of open source and community contribution in this ever-changing AI landscape. You two both played a key role in open source through the Kubernetes days, but also now, again, involved in open source in different capacity. How do you see that open source continue to evolve, and also not just in tools and capability, but also open source models that we all get to benefit from in doing AI development?
I think that the reason why we see so much open source technologies and tools is that it's actually makes it the simplest for everyone to collaborate. Okay, and for example, we invest a lot in weights and biases. Like we have a very rich free tier, and the reason why we do that is because we want people everywhere with their different perspective and different use cases to be able to experiment and collaborate and contribute back. So as long as this space continues to evolve so quickly, I really think it's important for us to do that. The second thing that I think it's actually something we can take from what happened in the world of Kubernetes, and I think what helped that to be so successful is evolving some open standards in this space. I know it's not easy, right? If you think about it, like, hey, I want to differentiate with everything, but the more fragmented the ecosystem will be, it will be harder for us to innovate and to build tools and just to move forward and advance this space. So that's an area that we continue to invest. Some recent news, so the Linux Foundation, for example, created a new foundation called Data and AI. I think they've announced about it last month, and really having more AI-centric projects as part of it. And that's something that we think CoreWeave, we support projects by other teams. We've also partnered with IBM and Red Hat on LLMD that takes the assets of VLLM and just makes it more suitable for distributed inference, as an example.
Okay.
I mean, at Vercel, I think open source is really at the heart and the core of what we do. And I would say that was one of the things that drew me to Vercel. And Hen has said, before I joined Vercel, I asked Hen, should I join Vercel? And she said, it's a really good match, given your background and what the company is doing, because of also what we did with Kubernetes. And I think at Google, some of the things that we got right, one is that, Kubernetes came from a system that at Google we had been using for a long time, which is Borg, right? It was a full sort of reimagining of Borg for the rest of the world. Similarly, I think at Vercel, on a much more compressed time scale, we've gone from running something like V0, which is an agentic application that is running at hyperscale, and we've taken pieces of that and we've open sourced it. And that's where the AI SDK comes from. We recently open sourced a vibe coding platform, so your daughter can build her own vibe coding tool. Not just use it, but she can build her own vibe coding tool. So I think that there's a learning there, which is that when something works really nice at scale inside a company, that's the best thing to open source. Like, that's the best. Otherwise, something that's a toy, is not as useful. But when you take something that is actually working in production and you take that and you open source it, it then can actually create a really rich ecosystem and a rich community. And that ecosystem can then develop on that project, and so many new areas come out of that. And certainly that happened with Kubernetes, but we are seeing it happen with the AI SDK too, because there's a whole ecosystem that's developing around it. So you can build chatbots, you can build agents, you can do memory, you can have many different parts of that and sort of specialize in that. And then the other thing that we took from the Google playbook is that, you build the cloud. You build the cloud that is the best place to host the open source. And that's what Vercel is for the AI SDK and agents and so on. We're trying to create that cloud. Of course, it's not exclusive. It wasn't exclusive for us, but we built a really good, healthy business and also an exceptional ecosystem that caused so much, I think, value creation.
You also touched, yes, about these open source models. I think similar outcomes we see from just any ecosystem, right? When we see those open source models with companies like, for example, Meta, not only they open source the models, they also write a paper. How did they train them? What kind of technologies? DeepSeek, for example, right? So all of those things that are happening are really advancing model development, which I think is really exciting. The second thing is by having those smaller models, make it, again, more accessible for different type of use cases. And for more people, right? Do I really need, how much infrastructure do I need? Can I use less? Can I host my model on a single node? All of those things I love, and it's really happening outside with the academia and the open source community, just sharing those best practices. And it's been amazing. I think maybe something also that we've seen in the past, there's a lot of noise. Aparna said at the beginning, every day there is a new model. So something that we are working on, and I know it's something that the community is also thinking about, how do we compare? How do we compare infrastructure? How do we compare models? How quickly can we do that? So I think that's something that it's not yet a solved problem. I mean, there are some tools, but it's, we were just talking about this morning, it's, for most people, if you don't know the details, it's like you're actually comparing oranges to apples, and it's hard. So making that simpler, I think.
One note I'll make on evals, evals can only go so far. We've been talking about this internally. Is ultimately, so you do evals, but the test is really after the evals. The test is really in production when you put the application in production, and to be able to do, A/B testing and to be able to do experimentation. And that's actually getting quite sophisticated. And that's another piece of actually the AI cloud, is being able to run experiments quickly and at scale and choose the best.
Yeah. And those are all, great things. We actually talk about this morning. We talk about Datadog's approach to word LLM evaluation, as well as, our new foray into feature flagging experimentation and things like that. So maybe as the clock is ticking, one last question as we think about the changing developer-operator boundaries, or the changing software development lifecycle. How is that changing in your respective company, especially, we have a lot of developer, builder, and operators and platform engineering in this room. How do you see, the different teams' roles starting to shift and what they may look like in an AI future? I personally was very excited. Just even this morning, we talk about a developer can leverage MCP to get a whole context from Datadog. That used to be, the Datadog user's specialty. And on the other hand, an SRE may be able to leverage our dev agent to directly impact upstream code change and land code changes. So, people's roles are starting to shift quite a bit with AI and with potentially a new way of thinking about the software development lifecycle. So how do you see that change in your respective organization?
So internally, the approach we're taking is leading with experimentation. Like we're really making a lot of tools and technologies and a lot of models available to our teams, and just letting see like what will come up. Because I think one of the things I love about like vibe coding and AI is that you can actually describe the things that you need. Mm-hmm. Not everything has to be a standard, or like you can personalize a little bit the experience for my role and your role, and maybe it will be a little bit different, and maybe it will be a little bit different from different companies, and it's really powerful. So we're doing that. We're definitely also making sure that we have the data available, so connecting all the sources. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, my hope is that, again, what we are seeing is that we are helping everybody to be more effective and just improving our own, like as a team, an entire team velocity.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a change in the developer workflow. We talked about it. I think the SDLC looks very different now. Anybody can use an agent. So internally, we use many different agents. One of the agents we use is Devin, and basically it's in a Slack channel, and anybody can tell Devin what to do, and Devin does it, right? He doesn't check, like, are you an SRE? Are you a developer? But the one dynamic that I think is particularly interesting and has been kind of difficult to move is the dynamic between security and the developer organization, because there's always been this, like, developers want to move fast, security wants to make sure everything is stable and not moving fast. But what I've noticed is with AI, security is kind of a lot more in the line of fire, because a lot of the threats are extremely business impacting, and also it's not quite clear that they're security threats. They are kind of security threats, but they're basically like AI that is coming to your site and maybe doesn't look like AI. It looks like regular traffic. It looks like human traffic. And it is consuming resources. It's using your infrastructure, and it's maybe even taking your secret sauce and sort of depriving your business. Right? Like maybe no one will come to your website anymore because they're scraping your content and is going elsewhere. And that is kind of a security issue, mm-hmm. because it's a set of security tooling that would prevent that from happening. Mm-hmm. So security, as I see it, in most companies is having to be much more AI aware, AI forward, even at banks, like you have to be very careful about like what kind of data you allow in, what kind of data you allow out, because, that could be your secret sauce, your differentiator. It could be really heavily business impacting. And these things are happening much faster than I think traditional security policies are able to keep up. So I think that's an area that is coming closer to developers and is going to have more of a faster pace.
Yeah, totally agree. That's definitely one thing we're also heavily investing in terms of, providing that end-to-end AI security. So, we touch upon a wide range set of topics, from infrastructure to developers and observabilities and security, and the ever-changing, landscape of AI and how that impacting how we build products. I want to use the opportunity to thank all of you for, staying with us for this session, and Aparna and Han for sharing your thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.